Pipe Planner is an irrigation program that we use to help us select the correct hole sizes for furrow irrigation. And they've also asked me to talk about soil moisture sensors, and I'll do that here in a moment. But we've used Pipe Planner for, I think this is the second year that we've used the version 3. Before this, we used to use Faucet. And Rodney asked me about Faucet a while ago. You know, I used Faucet for 12 or 13 years, and or maybe longer, I don't know. The older I get, the less I remember. But we used the Faucet program, and it was basically an Excel spreadsheet where we put in all of our numbers, all of our distances, the distances of tubing we were using, down the furrow, everything. Pipe Planner now measures everything for us, and it's cut off a little bit at the top there, but if our water source is here and we're laying our tubing at an angle across this field, it's measuring the distance of this furrow and this shorter furrow and so on down that length. It's also measuring the distance from the water source down the tubing to where it changes those furrow lengths. And in Pipe Planner, and it'll do it for us. In the Faucet program, we had to measure those ourselves. And if we were inaccurate, that would affect the math in the tubing, and we're liable to rupture some tubing. But in Pipe Planner, it measures everything for us. Another thing it does, you notice the angle that this tubing is going across that? If we're on 38-inch rows, or 30, doesn't matter, but if we're on 38-inch rows, how often are you punching a hole in your tubing? Every 38 inches, right? How often are you punching it if your tubing is going at an angle across that row? You're probably at 46 inches or more. I've got some where the tubing runs so steep that it's 20 foot between holes for a small section. Well, that makes a difference in this program. And Pipe Planner does those measurements for us. So it's a lot more user-friendly for us. We can also break it up into 2 sets or 3 sets or 4 sets, depending on the time that we want to irrigate a field. We like to irrigate in 36 hours or less to get the water on and off. But if you can do it in 24, you're probably going to get rewarded with bushels. And that's one thing that a lot of consultants are starting to look at now is y'all have set the bar as far as what we're doing in the field and taking care of our producers with the insects, the disease, and the weeds. And the lowest hanging fruit that you have out there is this irrigation work. And I promise you, you can make your producers money with this irrigation work. Guarantee it. What you have to do in the program is you have to mark your water source, as opposed to the old program where we wanted to mark the well and then we had to mark the water. We want to mark the riser, where the water is actually coming into the field. Then we draw the boundaries of the field. It's not in the program yet where you can upload your shape files that you have already into the program, but I think that's something that we're going to get one of these days, and I don't know when, but that is something that we're looking into trying to get incorporated. But you talk about a programming nightmare. You know, this thing's got all kinds of it's doing math all around. And be patient, we'll get to that step. But whenever you're drawing the boundaries of a field, do it as simple as possible. Don't worry about going around this corner up here at that angle. It's not going to matter that much that you're a couple foot off. You know, just do it pretty quick and easy around the borders. Now, if you have some L shapes and different things like the other field, then yes, you need to draw those. But for a simple field, try to make it simple. Don't overdo it. What the program does is you draw your boundaries, and then you'll go from the water source tab to the field tab, and then you will just progress down that field tab side from the field, the design, field layout, irrigation sections, pipe layout. You save and continue, save and continue. Very friendly, progressing from one screen to the next. So it's a whole lot better than it used to be. And you get to this last section and you draw the pipe. So now we're drawing the tubing right here. And we always have to start at your water source with the tubing, right? That's where we're going to start when we're laying it, so we might as well start there when you draw it. Now this third set here, you know that I've got to have supply pipe before I get there. So that's why we start at the well. Come here, we'll click on the corner here, and then click again at the end of the field right here. And this is what we're using to irrigate, but this is our supply tubing, but we have to have that drawn in there. So when I do that, there's my tubing laying there, and you see I like it on the border. So if I would have drew this field and snapped a bunch of different places, I would have had to snap that poly pipe to that line as I was going down that side. The simpler, I got a click at the well, a click at this corner, and a click at the end, and I'm done. So in your simple fields, it's super simple. Everybody says I can beat you with faucet doing this. And yeah, I can probably beat you with faucet on some of these fields. And this one here is probably going to be a wash, whether I can beat you or not. But I've still got 2 more sets on this field, and I promise you I'm going to beat you hind end by doing it with pipe planter versus faucet. And on that last field with the shapes, I'll wear you out. Now, once we get into the view screen here, this is where we hit open set summary. And what we look at on this is where I can put the elevation data in there. And really the only elevation data that the program needs is the elevation data of that tubing. Whether the tubing is going up or downhill, laying flat, whatever. I put in this design that this tubing is falling 6 foot. We've got areas that do that. It's falling 6 foot and 418 feet. You notice it's open end here. I can change that. I can tie it off. What do we do with 90% of our tubing, or really 99.999? We tie it off at the end. I had a producer in Clay County this year says, Mike, you need to come and look at this field. I said, well, let's talk about it. What's going on? He said, no, you just need to come and look. So I get up there, and the tubing for 600 foot is flat, and the last 200 foot, it's falling 11 foot. In the last 200 foot. And so we finally get down there, and he said it's blowing out the end every time. Because where's your pressure if the tubing's falling? It's going down to the bottom. And I said, you tie it off, right? He said, well, yeah. I said, why don't you leave it open? That way it's got somewhere to go instead of blowing your tubing. And he said, and he said words I can't use on camera. But he said, that makes sense. So now he put a barrel, full barrel at the bottom. He went and put more barrels up through it so that he slowed it down. You know, he already had barrels under it, but he went and put more until water wasn't running out of the tubing. He had 5 slices in that poly pipe where it stacked on each other that it had blew up with him tying it off at the bottom. So leave it open. I'd like to leave it open all year long, because what happens during the season? You have some fluctuations in your water. You know, most of the time we go down, but whenever we measure these power units, and you see the flow that I have in here at 1500, I like to find the sweet spot of that motor and that well. And every one of them has it. So you run it at 1200 RPM and get 1500 gallons a minute, and you run it at 13 and 14 and 1800 RPM, and that's a max that a lot of them will run. And you run it at 1200 and you get 1500 gallons a minute, and you run it at 1800 and you're getting 1600 gallons a minute. Is that extra 100 gallons of water worth all the diesel that you're using on that motor and the wear and tear on it? No. So check it at various flow rates. And all of your county agents have flow meters. A lot of your NRCS offices have flow meters. A lot of producers are buying their own flow meters. So don't hesitate to call some of us to come and help measure the well. One more thing on this screen is this lets you pick your tubing size. At 1500 gallons, most people will use 15. I've just found that. When I go here to here, I've found that. When I've covered the state now, I find that 15-inch tubing is what a lot use. And the reason they use it, because it's pretty versatile. The range on it, 1,000 up to like 2,200 gallons a minute. But under that, we can use 12-inch tubing. Over that, I like to use 18-inch tubing. But if it's falling downhill significantly, you might get by with smaller tubing at 1,500 gallons a minute. I probably could have used 12-inch tubing on this field because of my friction loss and it falling downhill like that. You can really play with that. I've got a producer in Prairie County that saved over $5,000 this season, because he used a correct size poly pipe. He used 12-inch instead of 15, because all of his wells were 300 and 400 and 700, all of his wells. And he had a lot tied together underground. And he measured them all independent. And then we measured them put together. We have a lot of underground pipe tied together, don't we? He measured one separately. It was 400 gallons a minute. One was 300 gallons a minute. And the other one was 300 gallons a minute. So put that together and you think you got 1,000 gallons of water, right? No. When we put them together and ran it, he had 450 gallons a minute is all he had, because of the friction loss and the pressure and everything in that underground pipe. So basically running one well is all that he needed, because that's all he was getting. Just don't, and I'm sorry, Delta Plastics, that y'all could have had $5,000 extra if you wouldn't made such a good program. All right, this is the sheet when we get it out, and up at the top here, this is where the meat of it is at. You've got to keep your pressure under 2.5. You want your minimum pressure 0.5 and higher. There's all kinds of trainings that we're doing across the state. I don't need to get into that real big, but I will say when I first did this one, my pressure was too high. I didn't like it. So, and the producer on this field says, hey, it's falling 6 foot. I'm putting barrels under it. Okay, I'll work with you. So I put a 1 right here. Said that my maximum pressure is 1, meaning I'm going to put a 1 foot incline ever so often. So when I did it, it tells me, and that's the next screen here, it tells me at, well, I guess I need glasses, at 36 feet up here, and then 60 something, and 96, and 124, and there's 15 barrels that it's telling me to, half barrels. It's telling me where to put them. What do we do normally? We just guess and pray, right? So the program will tell us this. I prefer a little higher pressure, because this is fine if this is what you want to do. But 15 half barrels, when you can clearly see this guy doesn't farm cotton, but he's got a cotton trailer full of half barrels because he uses a lot of half barrels. Well, what happens to a half barrel after a couple irrigations? Sinks down a little bit, don't it? I promise you, Cody, if I sit on you for very long, you're going to sink down a little bit. Well, I would rather use a 2.5. That's the pressure I like to keep it there and under. So I'll put 2.5 in that same blank that I put a 1 while ago on my pressure. So I'll put 2.5 feet of pressure. And now it's telling me 4 places to put a 2.5 foot incline. Well, how do you do that? You can use a full barrel. I had a guy in Greene County that used pallets and 5 or 6 barrels and made a big incline. And, I've also got people that's making their own jacks where they can, raise and lower it themselves if they want to. And what this producer that's got the 3, he had one that was 2.6 foot incline, and he only had to do one in 1,800 foot of poly pipe. He had to do one build up and then one at the end. He said, I'm going to put a mound of dirt there and farm around that mound of dirt, because it transitions up and down. Instead of, you don't want something, be careful about this if it just hangs it. You don't going up and down. That's why they got that PVC on there, so that it don't just hang it up there. It kind of gives it a little transition. Well, he's going to mound a little ridge of dirt up there, and he's going to farm around it. He said, because this is row crop every year. I'm never farming rice on this. It's corn or beans. Another thing that the program gives you, and this is some of the more important stuff that I think you can hit home with your growers on, because there's a difference in irrigating and watering. See this 22 hours it's telling me it's going to take for this set? It's 24 acres, going to take me 22 hours. a 1,500 gallon a minute well, I've got to run it for 22 hours. The volume that I'm going to have to put on that field is 2 million, just right at 2 million gallons of water that we've got to put on this 24 acres to get 3 acre inches on the field. And that's what we're shooting for. That's an average. Depending on soil type, we may go 3.5, maybe even 4, or 2 may be fine. It's dependent on soil type. But what if I'm done? It's supposed to take 22 hours. What if I'm done in 11 hours? And we got a lot of fields like this where it falls down maybe a little too much, or it just seals over and runs. Supposed to take 22 and I'm done in 11. I put on half the volume that I needed to, right? What if it's 22 hours and I'm just halfway or a little past halfway? I'm putting on double the volume, right? And that's where a surge valve will come in to help it get down the furrow or keep it from getting the deep infiltration. And those will pay for themselves in 1 year, and that's a whole nother topic. But all this is math. You're putting X amount of water in a certain size tubing that's this long, and it's telling you, it's measuring the pressure as it goes, because that pressure gets less and less, unless it's going uphill or downhill, then it's getting higher as it goes. But it's measuring the pressure from A to B and telling you what size hose to put. Because a 5/8 hole will give you 3.5 gallons a minute at 0.5 feet of pressure. At 2 feet of pressure, that same hole will give you double that, more than double that. Or we can use a 7/16 hole and get 3.5. All it is math. That's all the program is doing is using math to calculate what we're doing. We're doing a lot of sets. I've got a lot of people break it up into sets. And this guy, he heard, I don't know how many years ago, he said, man, I heard that you need to get it on and off in 10 hours. So he did a bunch of sets. And sometimes you just got to. But we can get a pretty good even furrow with this and get it out right. I want to mention multiple inlet real quick. This isn't multiple inlet. This is single inlet done 4 times. Multiple inlet, we need to use these blue gates. These blue gates give, and I got a lot of producers that like punching the hose. I know you said that earlier, Greg, that some of your guys like punching the hose. These blue gates, they give us the adjustment out in the field when we put that in there. And you don't got to put a blue gate in every hole. I don't care if you do. You could, if you need to put 4 holes there or 5 holes, you can put 3 or 4 holes and then put 1 gate or 2 gates just to shut it down. You don't need one in every hole. But you've got to have some adjustment in there for multiple inlet. And if you're using your spills in multiple inlet for anything but an overflow, what's that movie where the lady says, you're not doing it right? You're not doing it right. You want those spills are just an overflow once we get multiple inlet set up correctly. You want to set your spill to where it'll hold what's comfortable for the paddy, and then maybe an inch or 2 of freeboard, what we call it. But still, don't put it up any higher than what the paddy can hold, because you don't want it to go over the levee. You want it to go over the gate. Now, if you get a 4-inch rain, Lord just said you needed water. I don't know. But most of the time, we're going to get a 1-2 inch rain. I know we get 14 inches sometimes in northeast Arkansas in 30 minutes. But you don't want the water going through it. So you want to set your spills to where they're holding the water that you comfortably want in the field, and then add another 1.5 inches, 2 inches to it, just for the freeboard. Do you know what 1 inch of rainfall is? It's 27,154 gallons of water on a 40-acre field. That's 1 inch on 1 acre. For a 40-acre field, that's over 1 million gallons of water. So you get a 2-inch rain on a 40-acre field, you've got 2 million gallons of free water. That 1,500 gallon a minute well, it would have took you 24 hours to pump that. So there's your saving. Multiple inlet is just an absolute home run on rice, and especially on these hillsides. But now don't put it out on a 0 grade field, because you don't need it. Some producer said, I like it so much, I'm just going to lay a pallet by it because it does better. Pipe Planner will now let you do multiple inlet rice in the app. It'll let you draw the levees. You'll put the levee height and different things in there. It's got a little different information that it asks for you, but you can do it in Pipe Planner. Now, one thing I'll stress right here, when you're doing multiple inlet or your growers are doing multiple inlet, be very cautious on how much of that levee they knock down when they're laying out that polypipe. Because they can knock down too much. We just want just a small saddle in it. And then there's places, depending on the soil type, that I don't want to do anything to that levee. I've got some that'll squeeze it and be a real short, stubby levee. Don't knock nothing off of that levee. If you knock too much off your levees or your levees aren't tall enough, where's the water going to go? It's going to go downhill too fast. And you're going to have it shooting up 2.5, 3 foot at the bottom. And at the top, it's barely coming out. You want it to be about an even stream out of each paddy going down through there. So don't knock off too much. Be careful. Call your NRCS or your extension folks on that. Because if you do it wrong, and this is one of the ones where we measured the flow of this well and found the sweet spot, you know, the 1,200 gallons a minute, 1,500 gallons a minute of water, and he run it up and only got another 100, so we run it slower. Well, if you put another 100 gallons a minute of water in a design that's meant for 1,500 and you put 1,600 in it, you're going to have problems. That's why we leave the little factor in there. And you could have problems all the way down it if you want. And you know, I always thought this stuff, back when I started years ago, I thought when this stuff blew up, it was like shooting tannerite at something, you know, shooting a tannerite. No, it just pops on you. Moisture sensors. Got a lot of questions on moisture sensors in the last few years. In Arkansas, we use 6, 12, 18, and 30 inches. Mississippi, Crutz, he uses 6, 12, 24, and 36. There are several different sensor types. I'm going to talk about the watermark sensors. These are just basically some cheap sensors that you can put in, and you can use a handheld, go out there and actually measure it. You can use some with telemetry that'll send it back to you. You can do it as hard and easy as you want. But I'm going to talk about the watermarks here. They're just tension-based sensors measuring field water holding capacity. Their range is 0 to 200. 0 is saturated, 200 is dangerously dry. Most irrigation triggers are 80 to 100 centibars, and most of this data is out of Mississippi because there's more published out of Mississippi in relation to sensors than we have currently. So I'm using most of their data right now. And if you have a pivot, you know, they recommend 20 centibars lower, just because you're not getting the soaking that you're getting when you're going furrow. And of course, everything affects this. The capacity, the soil type, the crop growth stage, all kinds of stuff affect this. So let's say when you first put your sensors in, we soak them for 24 hours before we even install them in the field. And you don't want to get post hole diggers out and dig a hole. You want to use a soil probe or a slide hammer or something that makes a tight hole so that when you put it in there, it's pretty tight. But you don't want to disturb the natural soil around it, like with a post hole diggers, and then you want to put it in there pretty tight. Once we get them in there, we've soaked them for 24 hours, so all of them should be 0, saturated, right? Well, when you go back and you measure them the first time, this one we've got a 6-inch that's measuring 50 centibars, our 12-inch is measuring 40 centibars, and the 24 and 36 are 0 because they're down in the moisture further. All right, you have to weight this. You weight it depending on, well, first off, this confirms, once those numbers start going up, you're confirming that the plant is using water. You're confirming that they're working. And then you have to weight it. So in this one, half the roots are 6 inches or shallower, and the other half are 6 to 12. So we weight those numbers, and we come out with 45 centibar average soil moisture. And our trigger is 80 to 100. So we're good. We go back and measure them again. We're 80, 75, 40, And our 36 isn't reading anything, but you can see that we're getting down here 24 inches. We're getting some reading because it's using the moisture. Well, where are my roots at on this one? Half of them are 12 and under. The other half are between 12 and 24, right? So I weighed it. 25% are 6 and under, 25% are the 12, and then 50% is my 24-inch probe. So you weight it out, do the math, and now I'm at 59 centibars average. You're using that soil moisture that's down in the profile. Next time you go to it, and we've got a third in the top 12, a third in the next 12 inches, and a third in the next 12 inches. Some soil types you'll get it down 36, some you won't. There's some that those bottom sensors won't move. But see, I've got a third in each one of them. So these up here, I've got a third in 12 inches, so 16% and 16%. That's why it's a half a third and 6 and half in there. So, and then 33 and 33, and that's how I measure what I'm at. And see, I'm still at 55.3, so I'm still not triggered. I promise you, our every Monday irrigations, we would have done triggered. And that's the difference in irrigating and watering. And we ran into that a lot this year. Some people said we over-irrigated. Some people said they did everything perfect. I've heard people say that my dry land beat my irrigated. That's where we can use some of this to help on some of that, but not all of it. When you get 19 straight days in August that it rains, there's nothing, we're not over irrigating. And the dry land, it can handle it a little better because it hadn't got the moisture, right? We were dry as we could be up until then. So, and then you got all the disease because you got the disease triangle finished out. So there's a lot of factors that goes in there. My take-home message with the soil moisture sensors, and I have people that's got 18,000 acres of farm ground and 200 fields or something. They're not going to put these in every field, and I don't think that's practical. But I do think you need to use some on the farm to calibrate yourself in various soil types. Watch what you're doing and kind of get on the same page as the technology is moving in front of us. We know that with all the stuff that we're doing now. How did we pick up acres years ago? We went to this auto steer where we ain't got the curves anymore. My father-in-law just passed away, and he said he could pull the straightest road you ever saw. He couldn't. But these values are affected by the soil type. Place them in the most limiting soil type in that field. So get out your soils map and put them in the most limiting soil type, because that's where you're going to have your problem first, right? So we don't want to hurt anything there. And put them 2/3 to 3/4 of the way down the field. Just scheduling real quick. If we have a 1,500 gallon a minute well and 4 40-acre fields that we're going to use it on, and we get a rainfall. So, like I said earlier, it takes 36 hours on 40 acres to irrigate it. So it's a day and a half on each of them 4 fields. What if we get a rainfall event and everything zeroes out? All of our sensors are zeroed out. It's going to tell us to come back and irrigate all 4 of these at the same time, right? So when I start here, this field's a day and a half behind, 3 days behind. You see what I'm saying? This is the field watering capacity that you have to look at so that you don't get behind. So keep up with how much that well has to surface.